Mr. Griffith is with us live online to discuss the U.S. Venezuela tension. I think we could say it's a tension. The United States of America, I mean, we've been monitoring the situation, trying our best at least to monitor the situation. United States of America is saying that, hey, we want to tackle the drug cartel, we want to deal with what is happening in Southern Caribbean, and we issued a deployment, large vessels, not jokey vessels, large vessels. And of course, while that is happening, our Prime Minister is saying that, hey, our crime situation is at a particular place, and we would welcome any kind of support. But on the flip side, Venezuela is saying that, hey, don't get caught up with this false narrative. This is about attempts to remove the current regime under Maduro, President Maduro. But we, the ordinary folk, will continue to just read between the lines and hope that we could get the right information and follow the right information. But a man who is very much abreast as to the issue, he is with us live this morning, Mr. Gary Griffith, former Commissioner of Police, and of course, former Minister as well. Good morning to you.
Hi, good morning. So there might be fireworks tomorrow, Independence, but there's certainly fireworks for that US-Venezuela tension that's taking place. So lots of fireworks.
Correct is right, Mr. Griffith. But as we start there, can you provide context? I attempted to provide some context, but of course, you may have a different view or may want to add to that. What exactly is currently happening in real time?
Well, again, as it pertains to Trinidad and Tobago and citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, people are coming up to their perception based on, at times, based on political affiliation yet again. You're getting almost half of the country openly stating, I am agreeing with everything the Prime Minister is saying. She's right, let's support the United States. And then you have half of the country virtually attacking the Prime Minister and the government, saying that how she's selling her soul and she's being blinded, and she's going to be blindsided, and it's going to affect us with Venezuela. Sometimes it is so nice it is that you're an adult because I tell you, if the Prime Minister right now says she has changed her mind, 99% of those people who are initially supporting what is happening will change their mind as well, and vice versa. You're an adult, you're a mature person. Listen to what is happening and then try to get persons with some qualification or knowledge in the field, and then you decide for yourself. And it is the right of everyone to have their own personal view. The United States, we have seen for decades, the United States have been involved in such situations, and sometimes you will hear about all of these things, things with mass destruction and so forth, and it may not actually be authentic. I haven't said that is not in any way to justify that is what is happening now. But in the same manner that people are trying to question and criticize and point fingers at the United States and say that they are using red herrings of narco trafficking in the region as an excuse to invade Venezuela because they want Venezuelan resources, the same people who are saying that, I call you all hypocrites, because that is something between the United States and Venezuela, not our business. But Venezuela have openly put a shot across the bow of Trinidad and Tobago on several occasions by accusing us of having persons involved in terrorist activities and using Trinidad and Tobago as a launching pad to destabilize Venezuela. When a country that is next to you makes comments like that, that is a dog whistle and a signal that they intend to do more. And then when they openly stated as well that these individuals, they intend to hunt them down any part of the world. So you accuse Trinidad and Tobago of being a launching pad to destabilize Venezuela. You state that Trinidad and Tobago have persons with terrorist intentions to affect Venezuela. And then point three, you state that you intend to pursue these people wherever they are. That is an openly an open message to the world that we intend to go into Trinidad and Tobago under the guise of stating that we intend to hunt down these so-called terrorists. So in the same way that people are criticizing the United States for making false accusations as an excuse to go after Venezuela and go into Venezuela, Venezuela have done the same thing to Trinidad and Tobago. And if that is the case, had I been the Prime Minister, and I have an international ally that can support me in anticipation of a country deciding to use lies about terrorist activities in Trinidad and Tobago to try to use that to infiltrate Trinidad and Tobago, because Trinidad and Tobago, people may not be aware, just like Guyana, we have an exclusive economic zone of 200 miles off our mainland, going right around. And you're talking about billions upon billions of untapped resources there just waiting to be exploited. And if Venezuela could try to get a cut into it under the guise of saying we were invading Trinidad and Tobago, and by the way, we are now going to seize this land, similar to what they're trying to do with Guyana, By right, a prime minister will look to have any type of international ally to ensure that if that happens, we have a foothold of support to assist us to defend our sovereignty.
And earlier this year, well, a few weeks or months ago, when the Venezuelan government would have made it publicly known that there are Trinbagonians aboard vessels entering into the territory of Venezuela for illegal activities, the Prime Minister made some statements that got some backlash. Leading up to this particular statement now, where the Prime Minister is saying, hey, we welcome what the United States of America is doing in terms of tackling the drug trade. Is it contradictory in any form? How are we, the ordinary folk, to receive the Prime Minister's statements? Because she is at the helm of the Security Council.
When he spoke this statement, he meant about Trinidad Tobago citizens going into Venezuela?
Yes.
Right, no, well, but she was correct. I mean, if it is that you are a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago and you want to go into another country illegally, unlawfully, to be involved in criminal activity, that is your business. Fend for yourself, and she's correct. But again, the hypocrisy of Venezuela for decades, we almost on a weekly basis, we have seen La Guardia Nacional come into our territorial waters, attack our fishermen, seize their vessels, take their nets, arrest them whilst they are within our own borders. And the only time that ever stopped was when Minister of National Security in 2014, notably myself, I immediately said the same thing that happened. Kamal Kusami says, I said, when I got those 12 garment vessels that could have done more than the 3 OPVs at a cost of $1.2 billion less. When PNM talking nonsense about the OPVs, we were going to pay $2.4 billion for 3 OPVs. I was able to acquire 12 garment vessels for $1.2 billion less. To have done the same thing, inclusive of securing our exclusive economic zone that the PNM foolishly shut down and never utilized in 10 years. When you look at all of that, you are seeing a situation of Venezuela deliberately trying to exploit Trinidad and Tobago. And when these Venezuelan, the La Guardia Nacional were coming in, I was able to sign that bilateral agreement to tell Venezuela, if at any time your La Guardia Nacional enters Trinidad and Tobago waters, we are going to attack you because it has gone too far. The La Guardia Nacional have continued, they have been seen of persons involved in corruption, because when it is they seize the nets and the fishing vessels, you can't find it, so it stays in the hands of somebody in La Guardia Nacional. It doesn't go into the Venezuelan authorities' hands, and then we have fishermen being forced to pay bribes and so forth. So Venezuela should be the last to talk. So you have held 2 Trinidadians for being involved in getting into Venezuela. Why? Because you have Venezuelans who have been involved in all type of activities with Trinidad and Tobago. Let me clarify something here. We have 120,000 illegal immigrants in this country. That stands for almost 1/7 of our adult population. That is a recipe for disaster. At least 1/5 of that involved Venezuelans. We had a previous government that foolishly allowed over 20,000 to be regularized without any checks and balances. Dozens upon dozens of them were persons involved in gang-related activities. Some of them were gang leaders. We were to have a foothold in Trinidad and Tobago. We have situations where dozens of Venezuelans enter Chaguaramas on a daily basis with 100 persons and they leave with 5. Coast Guard doesn't check them at all. But if a Trinidad and Tobago vessel goes to Grenada for carnival and comes back in, you want to hold them for several hours. We need to clean up our act, and Venezuela is a major avenue that has become a byproduct to human trafficking, exploitation, sexual exploitation of females, inclusive of minors, illegal weapons entering our country, illegal drugs, and we need to put an end to it. So Venezuela has going to be a major liability to affect the safety and security of Trinidad and Tobago. So the same way Venezuela is pushing it to, we need to tell Venezuela, you have caused serious problems from your La Guardia Nacional, from your claims to state that you want to get parts of Trinidad and Tobago's territorial waters, and then your lies now to accuse Trinidad and Tobago of being a launching pad to destabilize Venezuela. So before people speak about 2 Trinidadians being held in Venezuela, we need to look at what Venezuela has done to Trinidad and Tobago on a daily basis.
I know in June the Prime Minister also would have, she's quoted as saying, Venezuela could do what they want, whatever they want on Venezuelan territory, but they cannot come here. Trinidad and Tobago territory is off limits to them. And she went on, and I'm paraphrasing now, to say any unauthorized vessel entering into Trinidad and Tobago's territory would be met with force. Are we equipped for that particular kind of situation?
This is where it is that unfortunately Prime Minister may not have anyone heavily qualified in training, knowledge, experience in law enforcement from a defense level. There's a Ministry of Defense, but there's nobody with any qualification or training in defense in the ministry. And that so she may make those comments without the information being passed to her. Trinidad and Tobago, we definitely do not have that type of naval capability to match Venezuela. I mean, again, I acquired 12 diamond vessels that were very, very powerful. That would have made probably us being just about on par, if not even stronger than Venezuelans. Armada as it pertains to naval capability. The PNM government, as I said, foolishly, those 12 vessels, they never used it. They were never refurbished. They never used it to have it properly serviced. And then I was able to acquire a Chinese vessel for 125 million TT. That could have trained over 150 Coast Guard personnel every 6 months. That would have ensured that we had all the personnel required to man the diamond vessels. That also remained. If you go to see all these vessels, they're like watermen, just being there doing nothing. So we do not have that naval capability to actually take on Venezuela one-on-one. But having said that, I think the Prime Minister may not have understood that if Venezuela intends to pursue persons in Trinidad and Tobago under the perception of them stating that they're coming here because of us having individuals who have a foothold to destabilize Venezuela. It's not going to happen with naval capability by Venezuela. They have the technology to stay on the mainland, press a button, and with the type of technology they have, whether it is through drones with missile capability, through they have one fighter jet can take out probably most of our military installations within a few minutes. So they're not going to go naval versus naval, because I think by and large, if it is that we get all those diamond vessels going, we can actually put some degree of resistance, not much, which is why it goes back to the importance of us having that support from the United States. We need drone capability for surveillance. We need drone capability for missile launching capability. We need to have helicopters. Under the last 10 years with the PNM, we have an air guard. People may not be aware in Piarco Airport. They do not have the capability to fly a Chiquichong kite, far less helicopter, surveillance, aircraft, nothing at all. So we have an air guard that have never gone in the air in 10 years. For anything, no helicopters, no aircraft, nothing at all. But we call it an air guard. So they have spent the last 10 years guarding themselves at Piarco Airport. That is unacceptable, and that's what our government allowed. So we also need to have international allies to assist us with what is known as SAM, that is surface to air missile capability. So if at any time Venezuela will launch any attack in Trinidad and Tobago, we must have that type of technology to be able to intercept such missiles before it lands and cause untold damage in certain cities or military installations. So that is why it is that so the people who criticize us about the United States, Venezuela have thrown a shot across the bow. They have openly threatened Trinidad and Tobago by stating that they intend to invade Trinidad and Tobago to go after any person who they deem as a person of interest, based on a clear and present danger of those individuals intending to destabilize Venezuela and using Trinidad and Tobago as a launching pad. So we must be able to secure Trinidad and Tobago. If it is that the Prime Minister has drawn the line in the sand, it is unfortunate that it may have reached that point. But Trinidad and Tobago has to look after Trinidad and Tobago. And let me quickly add, as it pertains to the comments by CARICOM, hello, everybody back off. CARICOM is not a federation. The closest we had to a federation under one umbrella, one flag, one nation, that took place decades ago, and Jamaica walked out and it collapsed. So there's no federation. It's not one country. Every single country has a different sovereignty, different constitution, and a different government. So it is the right of every government to make their decision. And especially as it affects Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana, because Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana are being affected by threats of Venezuela stating that they intend to invade Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana. They're not seeing that in other islands in the Caribbean. And the hypocrisy of certain persons in the Caribbean questioning the decision made by the Prime Minister as it pertains to her comments of giving the United States support. They are the ones who openly stated that they support Venezuela. So why is it okay that some islands in the Caribbean, prime ministers have openly stated that they are supporting Venezuela in this situation, but when Trinidad and Tobago says they're supporting the United States, you have a problem and you say that the prime minister should have spoken to CARICOM. Having said that, let me quickly add, I think there's still room for negotiation, for dialogue. CARICOM should meet as quickly as possible, not just with the prime ministers. The prime ministers have no training, knowledge, qualification, or experience in law enforcement or defense. That meeting must be held not just with the prime ministers, but with the line ministers of national security / home affairs / homeland security, and also all chiefs of defense staff and commissioners of police. This must be a meeting where the experts with the capability to understand law enforcement and the repercussions of armed conflict can be there to guide the politicians accordingly.
Mr. Griffith, of course, thank you for that in-depth perspective there. And of course, kudos to the work that you would have done in terms of procuring these security apparatus, particularly in dealing with from a defense standpoint. But what exactly is a zone of peace? Because, I mean, yes, we would want to form allies and, of course, to protect our territory. But we have heard recently, for example, the Prime Minister of Barbados emphasizing on our region being a zone of peace. What does that actually mean? And does that have any weight in situations like this where the United States and Venezuela may be engaged in some sort of tension?
Well, again, these new prime ministers may not be aware that this has been going on for decades. The United States have been a very powerful ally in providing support for all Caribbean countries. Every single one who speaks about a zone of peace, they have benefited immensely from the training, the technology, the equipment that the United States provide for us on a regular basis. It started since the 1990s when Haiti had totally collapsed. It was the United States that supported CARICOM. And in fact, I was there. I was the first Trinidad Tobago citizen to return home with the United Nations Peacekeeping Medal after being in command of administration, finance, logistics, support, welfare for 300 CARICOM troops from 6 countries in Haiti to ensure democracy prevailed. And the United States was a powerful tool that provided the logistics support for me to be able to do that, my job, and for the other 300 CARICOM troops from Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, Guyana, Barbados, Antigua, and Bahamas. So, and then there's CINSEC, the Caribbean Islands Nation Security Conference. There's CANSEC, the Caribbean Nation Security. And then there are Operation Trade Winds. All of these things the United States provide for us constantly. Not Venezuela. Venezuela have never provided so much as a raft for any island in the Caribbean. United States have done it constantly. They offer us training for all our members of the protective services to travel to the United States. They're also known as what is known as SOUTHCOM, Southern Command, where they are responsible to look after the well-being of their allies in a specific area. SOUTHCOM includes the Caribbean. So that Southern Command gives them that responsibility to look after the well-being of their allies, inclusive of islands in the Caribbean. So it just so happens that these naval vessels, they've been involved in patrols and operations and exercises with our CARICOM allies throughout SOUTHCOM. Most of it would be in areas such as Jamaica, Dominican Republic, Haiti, areas closer north to the United States, because the further south you go, every time you go south and you have a destroyer like that, it's going to cost you several million US to maintain it the further south you go. So it's going to be more costly to the United States. And that is unfortunate to islands in the Southern Caribbean. So we should be thankful for it, because what we are seeing here is what Jamaica has seen on a regular basis, what Dominican Republic, what Haiti, what Bahamas would have seen on a regular basis in CARICOM, Belize as well. So we should be thankful that they have finally gone to SOUTHCOM, and SOUTHCOM includes the territorial waters in Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana. So when the Prime Minister speaks about a zone of peace, they are basically stating that the Caribbean have been a peaceful country, a peaceful area, sorry. But the United States have been involved in exercise, operations, training with our allies, and that's what they're doing right now. So far, there have been no shot fired. They have not entered into Venezuela's waters. There are certain areas where these U.S. vessels have access to patrol because they are open waters, similar to the United Kingdom, similar to the French forces in the Antilles, where we have been involved in massive operations with these 3 international allies to assist us in the interception of weapons, drugs, and so forth. We reignited the Transnational Organized Crime Unit when I was Security Minister. It played a big part in providing that intelligence to work with these international allies. Venezuela have never done that. So people who are trying to pick sides, they need to get the data first. And I'm not saying for us to pick sides and just go total US, because I think Venezuela is our ally. Yes, they have made some very bold, damning, and unacceptable statements on Trinidad and Tobago. It doesn't mean we must draw a line in the sand. Venezuela can still be of great value to Trinidad and Tobago as a neighbor, as it pertains to the economy, to trade, to investment, and so forth. So we must not just pick sides and then turn one into a friend, one into an enemy. We need to be very careful, which is why, again, I would strongly recommend an immediate meeting with CARICOM for them to understand you can stay up in the north because you have a concern with what Venezuela will do. Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana, there's a clear and present nature of a country with a lot of military capability that have been making threats to try to virtually invade our countries.
And I know you said it's not the first time, and the U.S. has been operating for years, but just curiosity, whether it be by accident or whether it be by design, how much should we brace for any escalation should it happen within, around our waters, Mr. Griffith?
Well, again, the last thing that any country would want is to be involved in a war zone, to be involved in armed conflict. Trinidad and Tobago, we had just a few in 1970. That was like a joke with a small revolt by a certain arm in the army, with the Black Power movement and so forth. In 1990, I was the youngest officer to serve the country during the attempted coup. That was a joke as well. You had 120 persons call themselves terrorists, and within a few days they couldn't make a note because we locked them down. Those things that we can handle. We have never been involved in. I have been involved. I was in the my training in the military academy in the United Kingdom. They were heavily involved with situations in the IRA. We had to look at our vehicles every time we come out of a nightclub or a bar in London because the bombs were being placed on the vehicles. It's nothing that is good. It's nothing that benefits any country war because there's going to be collateral damage where innocent persons can be killed. We must do every single thing possible to prevent this from happening. But to prevent it from happening does not mean that we sit idly by, we stay quiet and have a country continue to threaten us, continue to make statements to use as a red herring excuse to invade Trinidad and Tobago, and especially the fact that what they have been doing for decades with the La Guardia Nacional, the tens of thousands of illegal immigrants that continue to enter. Let me not even start that if Venezuela becomes a country even more unstable than it is now, the tens of thousands will turn to hundreds of thousands trying to enter Trinidad and Tobago, and we will not be able to sustain it.
Are we prepared?
No, we are not. We are not. That is why it is the last government failed miserably by not having those diamond vessels properly maintained. The diamond vessels would have assisted in preventing the illegal entry of these vessels coming into Trinidad and Tobago's southwestern peninsula on a regular basis. Let me tell you how bad it was. There are several police stations in the southwestern peninsula. I was aware that certain police officers were benefiting from the illegal entry of drugs, weapons, human trafficking. I asked all of them to be polygraph tested, and there's one simple question. Do you financially benefit from illegal drugs, weapons, or human trafficking? Because we got reports that they would meet the boats, they will use police vehicles to escort them to wherever, whether it's drugs, weapons, and so forth. And lo and behold, when they were, at least there was one station out of 15 police officers, 14 of them refused to answer that simple question: do you financially benefit? So it gets deep into the roots of even law enforcement officers. This is not to discredit the police service. When you have 14 compared to 7,000, you have rogue police officers all over the world, similar to rogue members of the army and so forth. The point being is that persons can be easily manipulated with what is happening now. And that is why, unless we get that support from our international allies towards ensuring that short space of water between the mainland and Trinidad and Tobago, the southwestern peninsula, is properly blocked, we are going to be in trouble. As I said, you think I'm joking? Go down to Chaguaramas, around Cruz in that area. Every day, dozens of Venezuelan boats leave Trinidad and Tobago, go off to Venezuela, claim they're going fishing, come back into Trinidad without being checked by Coast Guard. So you could have one vessel with 100 persons from Venezuela. They pay them 100 US, whatever. They land and they walk out, and then and the vessel leaves, and the Coast Guard does nothing. The law enforcement does nothing, and we now have 100 extra persons on vessel every day now entering Trinidad and Tobago. We have to maintain them. They do not pay taxes. They could be a threat to national security. They could be a liability to the public purse. All of these things is a byproduct towards crime increasing, and we need to put an end to it. So if it is that this situation with US and Venezuela escalates, they are going to be leaving by the hundreds of thousands to get into Trinidad and Tobago. And the only thing that can protect us if that happens is the United States.
And interesting indeed. But when we look at on the ground, so I mean, naturally, you can't put a stop cork to the drug situation. But I guess with the assistance of the United States, there should be some level of containing and reduction. But what is happening on the ground, though, in terms of our security forces treating with the drug situation on the ground in Trinidad and Tobago? Because we're still facing a high crime rate, and some will say, and I guess most may agree, that crime is a business. So what the United States is doing in our business, and there may be certain repercussions or ripple effects to forming certain allegiance.
Good point. Again, it was the same United States when I was Commissioner of Police and Security Minister confirmed with me that 95% of all illegal weapons that enter Trinidad and Tobago come through the legal ports of entry. That's not Venezuela. That's North America. So a lot of these weapons come from North America and enter, which shows the importance of us having a border protection unit. I submitted the proposal to the Prime Minister. She doesn't reply to me. But a border protection unit is critical. If we can neutralize the illegal drugs and weapons that enter through the legitimate ports of entry, it will play a big part towards greatly diminishing crime. I'll give you a perfect example. The police service, they will seize about 500 to 700 illegal firearms a year, but at least 7 containers go missing every year. Missing. It leaves the port because you have that one rogue customs officer, that one rogue stevedore, that one rogue driver, that one rogue private security officer who's right there by the entrance close to Hyatt, and they all line up on the same night. And when that container leaves, a container can be with 5,000 illegal firearms. So what the police would have seized in 10 years in inland could you just put in 5,000 back within one night. That is how important it is for us to have a proper border protection unit, to have different arms and protective services working together. So yes, we know the problem with Venezuela and so forth, but that is more as it pertains to human trafficking, sexual exploitation of women, especially minors, and the type of weapons that come through the mainland is more like muskets or Pirates of the Caribbean kind of thing. The type of heavy, sophisticated automatic weapons you see now that all the gang members have, that comes from up north. That doesn't come from the mainland. But again, it goes right back to the importance of us liaising and working with our international allies, the same United States, that could provide the intelligence for us to know that it is this container, it is this individual who's working with this gang member to bring in items through this certain shipping company or so forth. That is what is required. We're not getting that from Venezuela. So we need to know where our bread is buttered. We must not sell our souls and our sovereignty for the almighty dollar or to support anyone because they're bigger than us. But we need to know who are friends and who are there to, because the United States have never threatened to invade Trinidad and Tobago. They have never accused us of stating that they intend to enter Trinidad and Tobago because we have terrorists here. Venezuela have done that. So we are seeing a lot of muscle flexing. We are seeing shots across the bow. Thankfully, so far, nothing has been done. What we do not want, and again, certain government officials have made statements because they do not understand national security. I remember this guy who's a government minister in housing. He has been a government minister for 4 months. He has spoken about every single thing. He goes to Maracas to talk about people renting chairs. He goes to see about dogs getting food and homes because they need shelters and so forth. He's never spoken about anything about housing. He jumped in to say that they don't understand. If Venezuela comes after us, the United States will be like that. He believes that the United States is like the Starship Enterprise, and within 5 seconds, the United States can head down there. It takes over a week for them to be able to assemble an armada, to be able to come to Trinidad and Tobago, to defend Trinidad and Tobago if Venezuela attacks us. Thankfully, right now, the United States is here. But if they decide they're not going to stay here all the time, because I'm telling you, it's hundreds of millions of dollars for these vessels to be down so far away from the United States. They cannot stay here all the time. If they decide to head back out, and now we are defenseless with Venezuela, and Venezuela decides to launch any type of attack on us, we do not have that type of capability to fully protect ourselves, which is why we need some degree of protection, because we can't be, we can't be getting on like a compact and be barking at a bad dog that's outside the gate because we have a big brother dog next to us. When that dog decides to move or dies or whatever, and that gate is open, we will have to stay very silent, and that's the last thing we want, because we can't be playing mass and play powder. We have made very strong statements to stand firm, which is good that a prime minister is showing that type of strength. But you're doing that based on the premise that you have the United States support with you. If the United States pulls out and goes back up north, away from south, deep southern part of the Southern Caribbean, then we will not have that capability unless they provide the type of things I spoke about to provide some degree of defense for us until our international allies can come down here to support us.
Okay, and Mr. Griffith, thank you very much for providing context and your perspective with regards to this situation. Before you leave, no parade this year, security concerns. I know naturally we should be taking any security concerns seriously, but just your perspective quickly before we wrap up, heading into Independence Day, a day of prayer
Sure.
and reflection this time around. No marching and stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is very unfortunate. I think people are ignorant to understand the importance of independence. But it is something that, however, we should look at. When you look at this independence paraded only military, the only time you really see that is communist countries. Maybe we should try to diversify the celebration of our independence other than just showing our show of strength through our military forces. But if it is at this time that that intelligence agencies have seen a clear and present danger that can affect national security, and they've recommended to the government that the Independence Parade should be shut down, the government unfortunately will be left with no choice. I hope this threat can be neutralized as quickly as possible so Trinidad can get back to enjoy what we stand for, which is ensuring that we are now free of any external forces and we are now free and mature enough to self-govern. That being Independence Parade. A happy independence to Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you, and we will take that as your closing remarks there. Gary Griffith, former Commissioner of Police there, an expert. He started to list a set of milestones. You were the youngest during that coup, and of course your credentials in terms of all the training and stuff you would have got. Congratulations, and continue to I guess, add your expertise when we're speaking about certain security issues that the ordinary folk may be ignorant to. So thank you again for being with us this morning.